We are very, very glad. As you know, we follow injustices here. I was for a very, very long time doing a internet radio program about the Don Miller case. I'm still very active with that, with the Facebook page and other activities involved. And I was actually contacted by a member, a wife of one of the members of the folks known as the IRP6. And we have with us Sam Thurman from A Just Cause. Welcome to the show, Sam. I'd like you to maybe just tell us a little bit about your organization, and then we'd like to get into a little bit of a synopsis of what the IRP6 case is all about.
Sure. Thanks, Eric, and Bob and General Farrell. Good to be with you tonight. Yes, the Just Cause is a volunteer organization. We were established in 2005, and actually we were established by a group of concerned citizens who witnessed a federal criminal case that got grossly over-criminalized. The federal government basically took a debt collection case, a corporate debt collection case, and prosecuted 6 executives of IRP Solutions Corporation. The mission of A Just Cause is to join in the fight against overcriminalization. And, basically when we talk about overcriminalization, we're talking about things that you and I do on a normal daily basis, trivial, obscure acts that can get twisted, and you can actually get prosecuted on it. And as I stated, back in 2005, IRP Solutions Corporation was a software development business. It got raided by the FBI, and the executives of that business were indicted, went on trial, subsequently got convicted, and they are all now sitting in a federal prison. And we say that they are wrongly convicted, unjustly convicted, and A Just Cause is fighting tooth and nail to help to get them exonerated and to get them out and get them back with their families.
And like I said, I've spoken to Olivia, and she told me a little bit. Essentially what this is about, and maybe you can expand on it, is as part of trying to get a government contract, they had to hire a temporary help service, and they were unable to meet the financial obligation to this company, and the federal government turned that from a startup business not being able to pay a bill into a fraud case, claiming that they had told this company that they had a government contract. Is that kind of an idea of what we have going on here?
Yeah, that's a good synopsis. And let me kind of give you a little bit more background information. IRP Solutions got started in February 2003, actually, and they were developing software and marketing their flagship software called Case Investigative Lifecycle. So Case Investigative Lifecycle is a software developed by the CEO and chief architect at IRP Solutions. His name is Gary Walker. And by all rights, Gary, he ranks right up there with the tops as far as software development and could rank as a genius. And basically, IRP Solutions was marketing the software to federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. The prospects for this software included the Department of Homeland Security, other agencies within the Department of Justice, NYPD, Philadelphia. There were all kinds of major agencies that were involved in that were prospects for this particular software. The IRP executives were absolutely convinced, and I was actually part of IRP back at that time as well. And we were convinced that we were on the verge of closing business with a major government agency. And to give you a little bit more background, if you recall the tragedies that occurred on 9/11, everyone looked at that situation, and eventually, you had the 9/11 Commission that was convened, and they came out with the 9/11 Commission report. Part of that report said that some of the blame for 9/11 is on the fact that law enforcement agencies could not share information. They could not collaborate on the information that they had. And not just that, but they also were a little bit, kind of close fists as far as the information that they did have. And so they mandated that the Department of Homeland Security was developed as a result of that. All these other agencies fell under there. And so they were trying to get a software that would help the agencies to collaborate on information. That's what this software did. So we're talking a major software that would help the government. So what happened, the IRP Solutions had demos with the Department of Homeland Security. In this demo was actually the FBI, the Secret Service, the TSA, Federal Air Marshals, and so they really liked what they saw. They told Gary and David Banks, he was also part of IRP Solutions, they said, hey, we really like what we see. Can you tweak your software this way? Can you tweak it that way? And so IRP, as you so accurately stated, Eric, wanted to modify their software to meet the needs of the government. Here you have a small startup company that's being courted by the largest government or the largest customer in the country, so to speak. And in order to meet those requests for modification of the software, yes, IRP engaged the services of temporary staffing companies who specialized in technology professionals. So these temps, for all practical purposes, were brought on board to help to finish the software. When business didn't close as quickly as anticipated, bills were not paid. IRP, knew that, but they were always, the intention was always to pay the bills. Well, what happened is that because these bills were not paid, that is absolutely correct, as you stated, Eric. That got criminalized, and IRP was accused of running a scam and some sort of elaborate scheme, which we're still trying to figure that one out. There was no scheme. There was no scam. This was a legitimate business that was developing a legitimate software, and the customer was the federal government.
Well, let me throw my suspicious mind in with this, Sam. And I have a question. Obviously, this was very sophisticated software, highly developed algorithms to be able to, sort and collate and share all this kind of information. What's happened with it now? Where is that software? Has that software, was it patented? Is there a possibility that this was done to, this software is close enough to what we need, we can finish it ourselves?
Well, when the raid was executed back in February 2005, that is a big question mark. As far as where the software is under lock and key. But something interesting happened on the day of the raid. The warrant stipulated that they were there for financial records. The executives pulled out the filing cabinets that had the financial records and basically said, here, go for it, go at it. Well, the financial records are still in the filing cabinet that belongs to IRP Solutions. What happened in a 10-hour span is that 22 federal agents went about imaging all of the computers inside of the IRP Solutions facility. So if you're there for financial records, why do you need to copy everything on every hard drive in every computer in the building? The theory there is that, yes, they were absolutely looking for the software. Now, the thing is,
we've got, I don't mean to cut you off, Sam. We've got music playing, which means we're going into a hard break, all of it. So.
Okay.
It's very interesting because, again, what our program is all about is critical thinking and keeping your good eye open. And when I even first heard about this case, I thought, government software, they really like it, only needs a few tweaks. Next thing you know, the guys that developed it are in prison, and who knows how that technology may be being used right now. This is NewsStalker, and we'll be right back.
Prison, pardon, parole system. The whole thing is a great big graft machine. When I was in jail, it cost $29,500 a year per prisoner, but we raised all of our own food. We had our own water resources. We had our own coal generating plant. So the most we had to buy was coal to make electricity. Everything else was all done in trade. We made our own cloth. We made paint for the highways. that paint that doesn't rub off so quick, you know, the reflectant stuff. The paint shop that did that was in Pendleton, Indiana. I know, I was there when it caught fire and helped fight it out.
Right, and now we're looking at a one hell of an industry now, the prison industry.
Yeah.
And they're raking in money in our fist. Okay, Bob?
We're back. We're back with NewsStalker on Orion Talk Radio. And, you know, we could get into a whole show. We could get into a whole week just talking about our prison system and our prisons for profit. And we know that one of the reasons why there's no trying in any way to rehabilitate anybody is because, you know, long time in, little time out, back in again. It's an industry. It's a business. It needs customers. I don't think that's the case with the IRP6. We're talking to Sam Thurman, and Cliff Stewart has joined us now. And before we got into the break, I think we got into the real meat and potatoes of the case. Like I had said, Sam, I had talked to Olivia before. She kind of gave me the gist of what was going on. She contacted me because we have been working for a little over 2 years publicizing another grave injustice that we're still actively pursuing some sort of result for. But for those maybe just joining us, the IRP6 is 6 gentlemen who were involved in a software company developing software that would do what the 9/11 Commission report said needed to be done, and that's to make a way that all these different federal, state, and local law enforcement officials could share information with each other. It would have to be very sophisticated software. I would imagine that had these sales of this software gone through, it would have meant just an extraordinary amount of money, because once you start having states and federal government using this system, essentially all law enforcement would have to use this system. Sam, I'm thinking you sell it to one, and you're essentially selling it to all.
Well, you know, during the break, you know, you and I we were talking a little bit about the value of this type of software, and just for the listeners, the federal government has had several failed initiatives. One is the virtual case file. Another is Sentinel Project, and you'll see more on the Sentinel now, but it still is not where they want it to be. Just to put this in perspective, when the Department of Homeland Security, after they saw demos and then they started to really get serious about this thing, they asked IRP Solutions to come back with just one component. It was one piece of the software that they really wanted to, you know, roll out initially and roll out as quick as possible. Gentlemen, that one component was a $100 million project. One component. And this software, the case investigative lifecycle software that was developed by IRP Solutions, had many facets to it. All types of information could be stored and shared. And this one component, I believe it was the confidential informant piece, was $100 million. And as you stated, you make a sale like that, then yes, other agencies are going to follow suit. The various local agencies, state agencies, because, you know, that also goes right along with the 9/11 Commission report. They wanted it to be to the point to where federal, state, local can all talk to each other.
Yeah, and I want to bring Cliff into the Cliff Stewart into the conversation too. Cliff, essentially this case, and you're welcome to expand on this as well, essentially this case is based on the fact that to try to tweak the software, they had to hire some temporary technical help.
Right.
One could assume, I mean, one would even imagine a good defense attorney could make the case that, you know, why would we not think that we have a looming contract here because, you know, the government has said, hey, you know, we need this, or we want this. But this is essentially these gentlemen were getting behind in their bills. They weren't able to pay what they owed to this temporary service, and instead of it being a business that couldn't pay a bill, it was turned into fraud. How was that case made for this being fraud?
Well, when you look at it, you see, starting kind of at the beginning, I'll go over a few more things that Sam alluded to as far as, at the raid when they came in for the supposed financial records and instead tried to get the intellectual property. And you make a great point that, when you look at a software that has this much value, that, you would say, well, we're going to keep extending ourselves because we're looking at, the people that were at the meeting that Sam spoke about in Washington. You had DHS, you had ICE, Immigration and Customs, you had the FBI, you have all these different agencies, and you're saying if I make one sale to DHS for one module, you're talking $100 million. So then when you start adding everybody else under umbrella, you say, hey, for the debt that I'm going to incur to get the software complete is going to be a drop in the bucket for the profit that we can get. And along the way, we're also helping our country so that we never have another 9/11. And when you look at the software and you say, okay, the viability of it is irrefutable, even to the point that for subject matter experts, IRP Solution had hired retired federal agents. So you're talking about FBI, you're talking about ICE, you're talking about these retired agents that they had brought on and had them in the building with them, working with them. And not only that, but these agents had signed contracts that said they would work on the software for free and were not worried about getting paid until the software is sold. That's how much they knew of its viability, that, hey, this is going to sell. And we have this in an affidavit from one of the retired federal officers that was a subject matter expert, that he put in his affidavit to the FBI that, I'm working with IRP Solutions. This software is viable for local, federal, and state. I believe that a sale is going to be imminent. And by the way, I want to stay on with them and continue to work because I believe that the product is that good. So for these retired agents to be working in-house for free and only expecting to get paid when the software sells, they know what a scheme is. They know scam artists. They work with them until they retired after 20-something years. And so for them to try to say, oh, the software is not good is a farce, by any stretch of the imagination. And so, but when you look at it and you see that the way that the FBI brought this case up, the way that the Assistant U.S. Attorney, Matthew Kirsch, the way that he prosecuted the case, and the way that the judge handled it, the only thing you can call it is a conspiracy, because when you look at it, you say, this is a debt case. These are people who went into debt, a small business. I don't know of any small business who, didn't go into debt, who didn't have to spend money to make money. And this is the same situation, but instead the government says we're not going to allow this type of competition. This is something, like you alluded to, that we could finish, hopefully, and make a profit off of it ourselves. But as Sam said, Gary was a genius. He had that part of the software hidden out. The software now, like you said, is under lock and key. It's about threefold what it was back then. And, nobody's using the software now because they weren't able to steal it. But obviously that's what they were after. But it really goes to show, when you're a small business and you're not used to these type of sharks in the water, they will come for your product, and they will come.
I'm going to pause right there. Got a break. It's a hard break.
They have means to.
Hey, Cliff.
Yep, we're at the bottom of the hour break. Again, a hard break that just gets thrust upon us. This is very interesting because this goes just far beyond an over-prosecution. And we'll continue in just a minute.
It's kind of belly rubber right there, Bob.
It's a nice little number. End of the night, after your last beer too many, belly rubbing with your friend. I almost said your partner. That's so 2013. Your partner.
As long as I don't have the mental image that General Farrell gave us before.
No, and somebody changed it in the chat room, and it didn't change for the better when they mentioned Janet Napolitano. But anyway, that's another topic from last hour. We have with us right now Sam Thurman and Cliff Stewart from A Just Cause. Their website is ajustcause.com. And we're talking about the IRP6. And you guys sure have pushed my suspicious buttons with this case, because there are a number of possible scenarios. A, maybe they didn't want this software to come from a little startup. Maybe they didn't care if they totally put the brakes on it. Maybe they saw enough that maybe it wasn't the specific coding or algorithms, but maybe it was just the way it was laid out, that they saw enough that they could go to whatever company, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, whoever, whoever's, patting the palms of people in Washington. Maybe they saw enough that they could go to them and say, hey, this is what these guys did. This is the direction they were going. I mean, essentially, I know software is complicated, but software basically just creates a picture on the screen that gives a person things to read and things to click on. And I know there are algorithms to try to figure things out, but I think a person can just take what a software looks like and what it does and build from that. And to me, that's one of the only plausible explanations for why they would have come down with such a harsh.
Well, let me be a critical thinker here.
Please do.
The one module that he was speaking of was the confidential informant. Okay? With all these freaking false flags going on, you don't want that kind of module in your software, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm yield the floor. Sorry.
Well, and again, I have to ask this question because this was a federal case.
Yes.
It's a two-part question. The first one, just a yes or no. Was Erich Holder involved in this?
We have tried to engage Attorney General Erich Holder. As a matter of fact, we have a serious phone campaign, mail campaign, email campaign, and if I may, I'll throw out his office phone number right now, 202-514-2003. Listeners, call Erich Holder's office and state, you need to look into this IRP6 case because there's something terribly going wrong here. So to answer your question, we're trying to engage him. He's not been engaged.
Yeah. And if you go to the website, adjustcause.com, and on the top banner, if you click on cases, you'll get to the IRP6, and there's a video. I've watched this video before.
Yeah, but in regards to Holder, I have two words. Fast and
good.
Okay.
Oh, fast and furious. Yeah.
But okay, I'm gonna yield the floor, guys.
Well, and I'm going to throw this out there because I think it needs to be said. The majority of these people were African American.
That is correct.
I mean, this is and I don't play the race card and I don't play the race game. I don't want to know what color somebody is. I want to know how good they are at their job. I want to know what kind of person they are. But this is an administration with the first African American president. We've got an African American attorney general who seems to have sometimes sided with the African American community. I mean, I think the Black Panthers is a great example of that, not prosecuting them for voter intimidation. You have a startup company of geniuses who just happen to be African American. I mean, what a great American story.
Exactly. And the judge in this case, Judge Christine Arguello, had the audacity to make some comments during, it was either as the trial was closing out or as she was, executing her sentences on the guys. And she made some statement to the effect that you should have been using your skills for something better than this. And so, she just held on to this thing that the guys were running a scam. When you have gentlemen like this, and I heard the general talking earlier, or I'd heard you guys talking on an earlier segment about press releases. We have put out press release after press release on this situation, and one of the press releases that we put out basically says, could the answer to the federal government's investigative software be sitting in prison in Colorado? I mean, you have people who are highly intelligent at the genius level, and they're sitting in prison where they could be actually more productive and helping the federal government. I always say, God forbid if we do have another 9/11. everyone that's been involved in this situation would have blood on their hands. And gentlemen, just to kind of, Cliff shared a little bit and spoke just briefly about the conspiracy around this. We can show you from the inception of this case all the way up to now, where it points to everything, like you're saying, let's get these guys out of the picture, and then maybe somebody else whose palms are being greased can get this thing. Even down to the search warrant. There was a special agent, FBI agent John Smith, if you believe that's his real name, FBI agent John Smith. He got a judge to sign off on a warrant, and the warrant said that IRP Solutions, for all practical purposes, is a front organization, and they are purportedly developing software. We all know what purportedly means. It's like, they're supposedly doing this. We don't believe they are. John Smith already knew that IRP was developing software. As Cliff stated, IRP had retired federal agents working in the building. These federal agents were contacted by Smith early on and said, hey, we're looking into this company. Is this a real company? The federal agent said, yeah, it's a real company, and we want to stick around. Agent Smith had already been in contact with the Department of Homeland Security and some other agencies in Washington, D.C. and said, we're looking at this company. Is this a real company? Yeah, it's a real company. Yeah, and we have had demos and so forth. So how can you get a judge? How can you even put the word down there, purportedly developing software, when you already know that the company is developing software? But he did it anyway. Got the search warrant and raided the business. Another step in this thing is that there were 2 grand juries. One grand jury was convened. That grand jury saw all the evidence, all of it. They called numerous witnesses. This first grand jury said, this is a corporate debt collection case. Why are we even listening to it? One of the grand jurors even said, so if I don't pay my bills and I get behind, are you guys going to try and indict me and send me to prison? So that grand jury came back with a no bill. The Assistant U.S. Attorney Matthew Kirsch convenes a second grand jury. He only calls one witness, who is an FBI agent, Agent Moen. He was also involved in the raid on IRP. You know the old saying, you can indict a ham sandwich. Well, if the Assistant U.S. Attorney has the bread and the FBI agent has the ham, and they're making the sandwich, you're going to believe whatever they're telling you. They came back with an indictment. That's how the guys got indicted.
Wow. So, let's get down to the bread and butter of this. We're getting to the end of this segment here, and we'll leave the story where it's at and let you know that we'll be in contact with you, and you've definitely got our attention. How much time do these gentlemen have in prison?
They have in between 7 to 11 years, and this is for mail fraud and wire fraud. Absolutely unheard of. 7 to 11 years on trumped-up charges that, basically they're throwing something against the wall and see what sticks.
And it worked. And I tell you what, it doesn't take much time for people to hear about this case like we've done on our show tonight. Well, I'm going to, the interview that we've done, I'm going to put that together as a YouTube video and tag it IRP6 and a just cause, et cetera, so people can find it and they can hear this. It just reeks of impropriety and why this was done and why these gentlemen were punished in the way they were. And I think it gets deeper than we've even talked about.
Oh,
but
yeah,
go ahead.
There's even things like missing transcripts, expert witnesses that were not allowed to testify, forensic evidence that would validate the company and the software that was not allowed to be presented in trial, Fifth Amendment violation, speedy trial violation. All these things are actually part of the appeal. And so, your listeners can get a good feel for it by going to the website. And if I could throw out another one, it's www.freetheirp6.org. freetheirp6.org, and we have all of the court documents out there, and your listeners can peruse those as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Time something changes or there's new news, I want you guys to feel comfortable with coming back on the show at any time, okay?
Well, we would love that.
Exactly. Sam Thurman and Cliff Stewart. The website is A Just Cause. We will be following it. We'll be helping you to spread the word on this case. It's right down our alley. This is what we do is all about. So thank you again, gentlemen. We'll talk again soon. Thank you. This is NewsStalker on the Orion Talk Radio Network. We will be right back. We'll make sure we post some links to the website and more information on the IRP6.